as we get into the task of linking tasks, I want to quickly show you something. When you create a summary task, as I've done here with pre-production, notice that I have a little minus and plus button that I can use to expand the summary tasks and the subtask of that summary task. So if you are a project manager who's mostly concerned with the big picture, or maybe you're handing this off to an executive to look at, you may want to hide some of these subtasks that are involved in pre-production. The executive may just want to know how long is it going to take for pre-production. It's going to take 10 days. Doesn't care what steps are involved, or they may already be familiar with those steps. But if you need to manage those things, then of course you can expand it like this. Now, one of the things you can do to manage your individual tasks is that, of course, you can link tasks, because a lot of times tasks will be connected to one another in such a way that one task can't start until the other one finishes. In fact, that is the default task relationship that's used by project, and that's called a finish to start relationship. There are other kinds of relationships that you can create as you link tasks, but again, that's going to be the default and is probably in the real world going to be the one that is most often used. Give you an example of this. Let's say we have to write the script before we hire the key principals. Let's just say this is going to take 3 days. Incredibly fast screenwriter here. And so there's the task here. I've just altered the duration. Now, we're not going to hire the keys until that task is done. We need to create a relationship between these two tasks so that this one finishes. They're not going to start at the same time. This one is going to start when this one finishes. So what I can do here is I can select both of those tasks just like that. And then I can go up to the edit menu and I can link the tasks. So this little chain here also is in the standard menu, or standard toolbar I should say, and there's this little button here, link tasks. And so there the relationship has been created. So hiring keys is not going to start until after the script is done. Can we do this for multiple instances of a task at one time? So can we link tasks 3, 4, and 5 all at one time using that link button? Well, absolutely we can. And so now you've created tasks that start subsequent to one another, just like this. Write the script, then we'll hire the keys, then we'll hold auditions, then we'll scout locations. And that, of course, will change. Notice the summary task that's been defined above. As I mentioned in the previous module, we don't define the duration of the summary task. It is defined by the number of subtasks that are underneath. Now, other types of relationships that we can define, once again, include start-to-start relationships, finish-to-start relationships, or start-to-finish, which is a very unusual type of relationship that would be created between tasks. And the way that you would access that task information is you would open up the task information dialog box. So you could go to the project menu here and click on task information. That brings this up here. You can also just right click and bring up the task information dialog box. Same difference here. So what you're dealing with here, as I mentioned, we see lots of ways to open this up. Go to the predecessors tab of the task information dialog box. So what we've got here selected is we've got the task develop budget, and the predecessors are as such. So task name, we can choose from a drop down box. We can click on the ID and just enter it in. So if we know that the task that is going to be the predecessor for this is hold auditions or write the script or hire the keys, let's choose that one. So we can develop the budget at the time we hire the keys, because once we know what directors are attached and stars are attached, we can start to put some numbers to the budget. So let's say that this is going to be a different type of task relationship, and I'll show you what this is. We'll choose hired keys as the predecessor, and now I can tab over, I can just click. Again, the default finish to start, but now let's choose this. Let's choose finish to finish, and then click on OK. Once again, it doesn't matter whether I create the relationships between the subtasks and other top-level tasks. It doesn't really matter where or which tasks those relationships are defined. If they're subtasks, if they're top-level tasks, again, it doesn't matter. So what we've defined here, once again, is this finish to finish relationship between tasks 3 and 6. So when we're done hiring the keys, we will also be done developing our budget. So let's say this is going to take 3 days as we change the duration. Notice that this can now begin as we're finalizing the script. We know what kind of movie it is. We're hiring the keys. We know who's going to be attached, and then by the time we know exactly who said yes, we know exactly how much generally things are going to cost. So that's one example of a finish-to-finish relationship. Another very common example of finish-to-finish would be like when you're cooking. Probably aren't going to use Project to cook your dinner tonight, but you prepare your side dishes so that they're done at the same time your main dish is prepared or finished cooking, so that everything's done at the same time, so that all the food is hot as you serve it. Now, can you modify these relationships later on? Can you change your mind? Well, of course you can. Once again, you just access the task information dialog box as we see here, and we can change either the predecessors. We can add additional predecessors. One task could be dependent on several other tasks being completed, of course, but we can also change the type. So start to start. Maybe the hiring of the keys and the developing of the budget start at exactly the same time. Well, now the relationship has been defined, as you can see here. Now, finally, can you change your mind? What if I define a relationship between two tasks, but then later on down in the project planning phase, I decide that, there doesn't need to be a relationship necessarily defined for those after all? Well, once again, open up the task information dialog box, and another way you can do that is just to double click on the task itself. So give it a double click here, delete. So put the insertion point in ID, delete the task relationships here that are defined, click on OK, and now you have no relationship defined between this and the other one. Actually, what you've done is you just deleted the predecessors for that particular task. So as we wrap things up here, we've created some finish to start relationships, which again is going to be the default. We've defined other types of relationships. By the way, the start to finish relationship, the one I mentioned, is not going to be used that often. It would be used in a case where something becomes available and that availability defines when the other one ends. Maybe you have just a planning phase and it's going to end when the work actually starts. That's the only time you'd use maybe a start to finish relationship, but again, to define a hard relationship between two tasks like that, once again, it's going to be rare. One more thing, by the way, that's worth pointing out is what if I insert a task in a series of linked tasks like this? So I decide that, between the time we hire keys and whole auditions, something else needs to happen. Well, what if I hit the insert key to add a new task? Notice that relationship is still kept intact. And let's say that the task is I've got to meet with distributors. So that task is going to be 1 day. Now, all I did was just quickly insert a task here and notice that it also has a finish to start relationship defined. If I access its properties here or the task information, notice that the predecessors tab is populated with the preceding task, hire keys. Again, keep that in mind as you're defining your relationships, that if you have a series like this and you insert a task into a series, it also will take the same relationship that the other ones do.